A single disappearance is terrifying. But what happens when an entire group vanishes? The result is a mystery that seems impossible to unravel, a story with no one left to tell it. In this episode, we explore two haunting cases where cars were abandoned, lives were interrupted, and answers remain out of reach. On the night of February 24, 1978, 5 men from Yuba City, California, Bill Sterling, Jack Hewitt, Ted Wire, Jack Madruga, and Gary Mathias, piled into a Mercury Montego to attend a college basketball game in Chico. All 5 had mild intellectual disabilities or psychiatric conditions and lived at home with their families. They were close friends who bonded over basketball, and they were excited to play in a Special Olympics tournament the very next day. But they never came home. 4 days later, their car was discovered on a desolate mountain road in Plumas National Forest, nearly 70 miles, 113 kilometers, from Chico and far from any logical route. It was found deep within a snow-covered area, well above the typical snow line. The car was only lightly stuck in a drift, still had fuel, and the keys were gone, but the doors were unlocked. Inside were discarded snack wrappers, folded programs from the game, and the lingering sense that the men had been there just moments before they vanished. The location was baffling, the road was isolated, and the group had no known reason to be in that area at night during a storm. None were dressed for the cold, and their families insisted they would never willingly drive into the mountains after dark. Weeks turned into months. Search crews on foot and horseback braved biting winds and treacherous snow-packed terrain. There was no sign of the 5 until June 1978, when a group of motorcyclists stumbled upon a U.S. Forest Service trailer nearly 20 miles, 32 kilometers, from where the car had been abandoned. Inside lay the emaciated body of Ted Wire. Evidence showed Ted had survived there for weeks. He was wrapped in sheets, had grown a thick beard, and appeared to have lost around 80 pounds, 36 kilograms. Yet, the scene defied all logic. Next to him were more than a dozen opened C-ration cans, enough to sustain him for some time. But a nearby locker, full of enough dehydrated meals to last a year, sat locked and untouched. A butane tank that could have provided heat had never been turned on. Wire had the means to survive for months, yet he seemingly starved and froze to death, just steps away from warmth and food. Following this grim discovery, searchers recovered the remains of Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling about 11 miles, 18 kilometers, from the car. Jack Hewitt's bones were found roughly 2 miles or 3.2 kilometers from the trailer. But of Gary Mathias, there was no trace. Only his shoes were found inside the trailer, a detail that perhaps opens the door to the biggest mystery of all. Mathias had schizophrenia, but was reportedly stable on his medication. He also had army training and was familiar with basic survival tactics. Many believe he may have stayed in the trailer with Ted for some time before venturing out, perhaps in Ted's shoes, in a desperate search for help, only to vanish into the wilderness. Over the years, several theories have attempted to explain what happened. Some speculate the group was chased or coerced, possibly by someone they encountered at a gas station or after the game. Others believe they were deliberately misled by someone they trusted, lured into the mountains under false pretenses. The testimony of a man named Joseph Shons adds another layer of confusion. Shons claimed he was stuck in the snow on that same road the night the men disappeared. He reported seeing headlights and a group of people, including what he thought was a woman holding a baby. He said he yelled for help, but they fell silent and turned off their lights. That reference to a woman and a baby has never been substantiated. The families have never accepted the official explanation that the group simply got lost and panicked. They insist someone else had to be involved. Jack Madruga's mother stated her son would never let anyone else drive his prized car and would never have driven it into deep snow. And then there's Mathias. His disappearance remains an active case in the FBI's database. To this day, no remains have ever been found. Some believe he wandered into the vast forest and succumbed to the elements in a place yet to be discovered. Others hold on to the slim hope that he may still be alive, perhaps living a different life, unaware of the tragedy that unfolded. The walk from the abandoned car to the trailer was over 19 miles, 31 kilometers, through deep snow, steep inclines, and bitter cold. a brutal journey that seems almost impossible without a powerful motivation. This has led to the theory that Gary Mathias, being in better physical condition, may have urged the group onward, convinced he could lead them to safety. Even with multiple documentaries and renewed attention online, no new evidence has surfaced. The case remains one of the most chilling examples of a group vanishing together under deeply illogical circumstances. This unsettling story of 5 friends who left their car behind and vanished would be echoed decades later by a family in rural Oklahoma, a family whose final moments were just as confusing and just as heartbreaking. In October 2009, Bobby Jamison, his wife Sherilynn, and their 6-year-old daughter Madyson left their home in Eufaula, Oklahoma. They told friends they were driving out to a remote 40-acre plot of land they were considering buying near Red Oak. The Jamisons were known to be private, even eccentric, but no one could have imagined what was to come. 9 days later, their white pickup truck was found abandoned on a rugged dirt road. Inside were their IDs, wallets, cell phones, a GPS, Sherilynn's purse, and an astonishing $32,000 in cash stashed under the driver's seat. More disturbing still, their beloved family dog was discovered inside the truck, malnourished, but alive. There were no signs of violence, and no tracks leading away from the vehicle, which appeared to be in perfect working order. It was as if the Jamisons had stepped out of the truck and vanished into thin air. The FBI joined state and local investigators in a massive search. Helicopters with thermal imaging scanned the terrain. Cadaver dogs scoured the woods. Foot patrols covered miles of dense forest. Yet, they found nothing. Then, in November 2013, more than 4 years after they vanished, hunters stumbled upon partial skeletal remains under a tangle of brush, less than 3 miles, 4.8 kilometers, from where the truck was found. The discovery was crushing. Forensic testing confirmed the bones belonged to Bobby, Sherilynn, and Madyson, but the cause of death could not be determined. The remains were too decomposed to show clear signs of trauma, and no weapons were found nearby. The scene suggested the family had simply laid down together in the woods and died. Investigators considered every angle. Bobby had recently filed a lawsuit against his own father, accusing him of threats and fraud. Some wondered if the family had been targeted in retaliation. Others speculated the $32,000 pointed to a drug deal gone wrong, but no evidence ever linked the Jamisons to criminal activity, and no arrests were ever made. Security footage from the family's own home, recorded on the day they left, only deepened the mystery. The video shows Bobby and Sherilynn moving back and forth from the house to the truck in a bizarre, trance-like state. For nearly 20 minutes, they shuttle belongings to the vehicle, moving like robots, never speaking, never looking at each other. Sherilynn had reportedly written disturbing thoughts in private letters, mentioning spirits and dark forces. Friends claimed she believed their home was haunted and that she had dabbled in witchcraft. At one point, she'd painted strange phrases on a storage container on their property. The couple had also asked their local pastor about spiritual warfare and exorcisms. These details led some to wonder if they had been in the grip of a shared delusion or a psychological breakdown. Still, there was no formal history of mental illness that would point to a group suicide. No note was found. No substances were recovered that might indicate poisoning. The absence of a clear explanation, medical, psychological, or criminal, left even seasoned investigators baffled. One theory suggests they became lost or disoriented, perhaps succumbing to hypothermia or dehydration. But with a working GPS in the car and their 6-year-old daughter with them, that explanation feels thin. While not trained survivalists, they knew the area well enough to avoid getting hopelessly lost so close to a road. Others believe they encountered someone dangerous in the woods and were either forced into the forest or led there. But the lack of any sign of a struggle, a secondary crime scene, or even tire tracks from another vehicle leaves this theory as pure speculation. Perhaps the most chilling question is why the remains weren't found sooner. The area had been searched extensively. Some believe the bodies were not there during the initial sweeps, that they were moved there later. But with no clothing or personal items discovered at the site, that possibility only creates more questions. On one of the Jamisons' phones, investigators discovered a photograph of young Madyson, taken shortly before the family vanished. She stands alone in the woods, arms crossed tightly, gazing off to the side with a tense expression. No one knows who took the photo or why. It remains one of the case's most haunting clues. Over the years, internet sleuths have pored over the case, but no credible new leads have emerged. Some still believe the family staged their disappearance, only for it to go horribly wrong. Others are convinced they were victims of foul play that was expertly concealed. In the end, like the Yuba County Five, the Jamison family's final decisions defy logic. Why abandon a truck full of essentials and walk into the wilderness with a young child? What state of mind or what external threat could have possibly led them to their deaths? The truth, it seems, was lost with them in the wilderness, leaving a trail of heartbreak and unanswered questions. What truly happened in the snowy hills of California and the misty woods of Oklahoma? Until someone talks or some fragment of evidence is finally uncovered, these cases remain what they've always been: haunting, unsolved, and unforgettable. Thanks for watching. If you found this episode compelling, consider subscribing and turning on notifications for more mysteries and dark stories every week.